Yoko is at the center of a growing scandal after a sudden cancellation and reported threats, but what she said afterward only made the situation worse. Now the real question is no longer about the event, but about what is actually happening to her career and why everything keeps escalating. The cancellation happened at the last moment, when fans had already spent money, traveled, and were ready to meet her, which is exactly why the reaction was so intense and emotional. The official reason was safety concerns and threats, but without clear details. It felt like an explanation that didn't actually answer anything, and instead of calming the situation, it triggered even more doubt and frustration among fans. Yoko later addressed the situation and explained that she had received information about threats, but she also admitted that part of that information was inaccurate, and she apologized for that, which is important because it shows that even internally there was no full clarity, and decisions may have been made based on information that was not completely verified, and that is where trust really started to break, because people began questioning whether the cancellation was truly the only option. Then Yoko said something that completely shifted the perception of everything. She made it clear that she does not make final decisions and that she is an employee who has to follow company rules. This became the turning point of the entire situation, because it showed that she does not have full control over her own career, and suddenly this was no longer just about a cancellation, it became about the conditions she is working under and how much influence she actually has over her own path. She also explained that she did not actively promote the event because she personally did not fully agree with the format and had doubts about it, and she even tried to discuss it internally with the company, but in the end she could not change the outcome, and this only reinforced the idea that her voice inside the system is not decisive, which led to even more criticism toward the agency, because it started to look like decisions were being made without truly considering her position. Another major point of tension was the topic of possible legal action against fans, which caused a strong reaction because it felt like pressure toward the audience, but Yoko clearly stated that she was not aware of this and never gave permission for it, explaining that she had only heard about it from others and did not have direct evidence, and later clarified that it was not about fans as a whole but about a specific group of people who were spreading false information, manipulating content, and damaging her reputation, which adds context but still does not fully resolve the concerns, because it raises another question about how the situation escalated to that level in the first place. At the same time, Yoko openly admitted her own mistake, saying that she did not verify the information and made conclusions based on what she was told, and this is one of the most important moments, because it makes her more human and honest, but it also increases the tension, since it shows that key reactions may have been based on incomplete or incorrect information, which again leads back to the issue of trust and how fragile it has become throughout this situation. She also addressed the issue of fans being labeled as antis, explaining that she had received reports about fake accounts and people deliberately provoking conflict within the fandom, and she emphasized that real fans are not included in that, which highlights how distorted the communication became between her and the audience, where even basic trust started to collapse under pressure and misinformation. In the middle of all this, another important element appears, which is grace, and this is where the situation becomes even more complicated and emotionally charged, because the event was supposed to represent a joint moment, something that would strengthen both of them and create a shared connection with fans, but instead it turned into a point of tension, because it becomes clear that even inside that collaboration there were disagreements, uncertainty, and a lack of alignment, and the fact that Grace was also not fully comfortable with the format adds a completely new layer to the story, because it suggests that the issue was not just external pressure or threats, but internal decisions that did not fully reflect what the artists themselves wanted, and this changes everything, because now it starts to look less like an isolated situation and more like a pattern. The presence of Grace in this situation amplifies the problem rather than balancing it, because when two artists are involved and both seem to have limited influence over what is happening, it raises a much bigger question about how the agency operates, and whether the system is actually built to support them or to control them, and this is exactly why the audience reaction becomes stronger at this point. Because people are no longer just reacting to one event, they are reacting to what feels like a repeated structure where the artists are not fully in control. As more details come out, the focus shifts more aggressively toward the agency, and this is where the narrative becomes significantly harsher, because fans begin to openly question whether the company is actually protecting Yoko or whether it is limiting her, restricting her opportunities, and preventing her from growing, and this is not just speculation anymore. It is based on a pattern that people believe they are seeing, where projects are inconsistent, communication is unclear, and decisions seem to go against what would benefit her the most. The idea that she cannot make final decisions becomes even more disturbing in this context, because it suggests that even when she disagrees, even when she tries to speak up, the final outcome may still not reflect her voice, and this creates a sense of frustration not only for her but for the entire audience that supports her. The calls for boycotts begin to grow stronger at this point, not because of a single mistake, but because of accumulated dissatisfaction, and this is where the situation starts to feel like it is slipping out of control, because once the audience begins to turn against the system itself, it becomes very difficult to regain trust. This is further intensified by the memory of her previous disappearances from the public eye, which at the time were confusing and worrying, but now are being reinterpreted as potential signs of pressure, silence, or lack of freedom, and whether that interpretation is fully accurate or not, it still shapes how people perceive the current situation, and perception at this point becomes as powerful as reality. The agency continues to claim that it is protecting her and that she is facing serious harassment, which may very well be true, but the problem is that this explanation no longer feels sufficient to a large part of the audience, because when protection starts to look like limitation, the narrative shifts completely, and that is exactly what is happening here. Yoko's decision to build her own team, to work with a personal lawyer, and to seek more independent guidance becomes one of the strongest signals in the entire situation, because it shows that she is trying to regain control over her own career, but it also confirms that the current structure is not enough, and that something is fundamentally not working the way it should. This is not a small adjustment, this is a response to a system that no longer feels stable or reliable, and that realization is what makes the situation feel so serious. The emotional weight of her final words adds another layer, because when she asks people not to fight and admits that everything is affecting her, it shows the human side of the situation, but it also highlights how intense the pressure has become, because this is no longer just about public perception, it is about personal impact, and that shift changes everything, because once a situation reaches that level, it stops being just a discussion online and starts affecting real decisions, real emotions, and real consequences behind the scenes. And this is where the story reaches its most critical point, because the audience is now divided in a way that cannot be easily fixed, with one side believing that she is doing everything she can within a restrictive system, trying to protect herself while still staying professional, and the other side believing that her explanations are not enough and that something deeper is still being hidden, something that has not been fully said or cannot be said openly. And as long as that division exists, the situation will continue to evolve, because every new detail, every new statement, and every new decision will be analyzed, questioned, debated, and often misunderstood, which only adds more pressure and more uncertainty to everything that follows. The biggest concern now is not what already happened, but what happens next, because if the structure around her does not change, then the same pattern may repeat again, with similar conflicts, similar misunderstandings, and similar reactions from the audience, and that is exactly why more and more people are starting to say that the problem is not just the situation, but the system itself, a system that many now believe is holding her back instead of allowing her to fully grow and move forward. And until that changes, the conflict is unlikely to truly end, because the root of the issue will still remain in place, continuing to create new waves of tension every time something new happens. Write your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like this video.